welcome back to week 3 of the LEC. Now, I told you a few minutes ago that we would talk about the Misfits versus Vitality lineup. But before that, I have Ships with me to talk about the rookies we have in the LEC and both these lineups. Thank you very much for joining me, Ships.
Hello, Laure. Thank you for welcoming me.
You know what? Let's dive into it directly because we know how we like to see new players and how they can match up against the top players in the LEC. And I feel like it's extra special when these players come from our region and country. So talk me through and give me your input on what you think about the impact of the LFL in the LEC over the past 2 years.
Well, I think I'm sorry, but for the technique, I can hear me back twice in the record.
You can hear yourself back twice. I'm sure the technical team will triage that as quickly as they can. Just let me know when you're good to go because. To give a bit of context here, we had a lot of rookies going from the LFL to the LEC since the LEC started. And I remember vividly last year, for instance, Misfits, with the way they promoted their whole lineup in the LEC. And we saw how they saved the situation in the end. So tell me about this and the other rookies we saw going from the LFL to the LEC.
I think it's clear that LFL brought a lot of players to LEC. I think it's fair. We have a lot of good talents, but what is funny is that usually some of the players we see reaching LEC from LFL are not the one we expect. So I guess it's a choice. It's a choice for the teams, but we have a lot of other talents who just want to grow and to rise to LEC. And I think we have, so this year we have Dandan, NG, Comp, this kind of player. I think they are already good in their style, but I think the hardest part for them is coming now. You have to stay at the top. You have to confirm that you deserve this place because a lot of players are waiting to take it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I was talking with Duke about this week, especially with how he was training rookies. I mean, we saw what happened with Skins in summer. Now he promoted NG in the lineup. And he told me how difficult it could be sometimes to train these rookies because these are players that are used to being good in their competitive environment. And they have to reevaluate everything coming into the LEC. And I mean, this brings me to the impact that the academy teams have had in the LEC, especially with Vitality and Misfits, because you know these teams from the LFL. So what could you tell me about the academy teams and their ability to promote players even faster in the LEC?
Well, I think it's interesting because Misfits and Vitality have invested a lot in their academy teams. It's clear that they want to grow players because it's also an economic matter. I mean, if you grow them, you don't have to buy their contract or this kind of stuff. So it's easy, and you know them from the start, so it's easier to manage them. So I think those two teams have been really serious about training new players and growing talents, and it's very nice to see them use those rookies. Actually, even if I think it could be better in a way. You talked about Skins, for example. Skins didn't have the best split during the spring, so I think he has the talent to come back. But maybe he needs to be more nurtured, I would say, to come back stronger. He's a particular player. He's really skillful, but I mean, he have to get a stronger mental, I think. So you have to work. You have to work on it for a player like him.
Yeah, for a player like him. And I mean, NG came in instead here, and talking to Duke, he was telling me that NG's strength was the fact that he was an amazing shot caller, and that's what this team needed. This team needed guidance coming off from Spring Split. And this brings me to the Misfits topic, because Misfits was performing well. They replaced their bot lane. How is this an upgrade for you?
The thing is, I'm not sure it's an upgrade because I think the change for I think Misfits want the same thing from their bot lane actually. that said to be like to slow play in early game and to pop off in team fight. I think the real strength of Misfits, excuse me, lies in their mid jungle, who are really good, and they proved that during the spring split. But yet I have to find where is the upgrade for the bottom lane. Actually, I think that Bivoy and Denik were fitting the style of Misfits and the needs of Misfits, and the situation actually is quite bizarre because you have DOS who is supposed to be a really skilled player who can have a lot of impact on lane, but the thing is, I'm not sure this is the style of Kobbe. Well, in fact, I'm sure that this is not the style of Kobbe actually. So I think those two guys, I'm not sure they do mesh really well together, except the fact that they are both Danish. But I think you could find better situation for Kobbe or even for DOS. You could find better combinations. And actually, I have the feeling that DOS dies a lot because his team doesn't seem to be on the same page, and I can feel the synergy between Razork and DOS, whereas during the spring split, you could feel that Razork plus Denik were really good together.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And on the Vitality side, we don't have enough time to bring it up, but it's going to be a real big challenge for NG here, as he's going to come up against this very strong mid-jungle duo from Misfits. We'll see how this one turns out in the game. Ships, thank you very much for all your insights. And we're going to toss it back to the casters right now. Take it away, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Laure and Chips there for the insight into the process. And I'm inclined to agree with Chips. I think Laure's fishing for that, like, what do you see from this Misfits bot lane? Looking for that diamond in the rough. But he might be in the same camp that we are, that it hasn't felt like an upgrade yet. Kobbe has, but DOS versus Denik hasn't made much sense.
Here's the thing, like, Misfits are on like a roller coaster right now. Misfits fans are on a roller coaster right now. I don't know, maybe it's just... But you had like that pop-up, sorry. You had that pop-off game against Fnatic where like it comes down to the reckless steal. It's really crazy. Yeah. Like, Kobbe's like, I'm back in the LEC to prove something. And then DOS and Razork have had one hell of a ride. They have been in the corkscrew, in the loop-de-loop, like on the drop, and everything's just waiting for them to level out and kind of return to form. Because I agree with Chips that it's supposed to be about Febiven and Razork. That was always the strong part of Misfits. Just go back to the basics. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel.
Completely agree, Froskurinn. We're going to have to see how they approach this one. And of course, on the opposite side, for Vitality, it's been a mixed bag as well. And I think we are naturally looking towards their bot lane as well. Comp and Labrov have been often a shining light. It's the full Greek bot lane versus the full Danish bot lane of Misfits Gaming.
So we're going to see what's going to happen in the draft. And already we are taking shots to the bot lane. Thresh, a fairly common ban, especially from blue side, so not super surprised. We'll see kind of what big picks make it through the draft phase. It's going to be that priority pick. Will it be something like the Aphelios? Will it be something like the Trundle? I would say Yuumi and Ezreal, but I like where Team Vitality's head's at. They're like, this champion's broken, get it out of here.
And limiting, of course, also what DOS can bring to the table. The set will be the final ban, has been a flex pick for many teams. And interestingly, for Cabochard, one of the few people to play at top, whereas Razork has played at the jungle on the Misfits lineup. But Froskurinn, I like the difference in this bot lane, and I want to see if we see it manifest in this game, because for a long time, Vitality were the Kalista team. They played a lot more Kalista, whereas Misfits Gaming are more of the Aphelios team, more scaling. It's often about Febiven's Azir, but now we're going to get a bit of a switch up, as Vitality will be the ones grabbing the Aphelios.
Ezreal Trundle. Ooh, I'd like Azir better blind pick. Back to basics. So one of the things, Febiven likes to take the Akali into the Azir. We've seen that before, and kind of give away wave priority or wave pushing priority to go for like kill priority. But the issue that I have there is that I think it impacts Razork because he no longer gets to have that permanently pushing mid laner who can always rotate faster. So I like that, like, while I respect Febiven being able to play the Akali or going for more of these assassin-oriented picks, I think it's better for Razork if he's on something pretty simple like the Azir. That sets up Razork very nicely.
And I want to see how this affects their early game strategy as well. Ezreal, obviously a very safe champion you can kind of leave on his own. And just in context, if you haven't watched the entire season here from the Misfits lineup, these are their most picked mid and jungle champions respectively. This is now the 4th game for Febiven on the Azir and the 4th game for Razork on the Lee Sin.
And we wanted them to go back to comfort. In response, though, because they did take the blind Azir, super powerful blind, it did mean that they didn't get that Trundle. So you give Trundle over to an Aphelios team, and that gives you so much control. All you have to do is throw down that pillar, slow everyone trying to run at your Aphelios, and let this 200 years of experience do work.
never gets old. I don't know if it ever will, Froskurinn. Of course,
Now, what they're going to do is they're going to ban anything that can ruin Aphelios' day. They're like, Wukong, get him out of here. We might even see a Malphite ban.
could come through. Could also be the GP ult, obviously very effective, but Malphite actually one of my preferred picks, especially into the double attack speed of the Corki and the Azir. The Braum will be the ban from Misfits Gaming. Obviously strong synergy as well with the Aphelios Corki, but definitely not something I expected to be taken off the table.
Braum works really well with Trundle. It also empowers him to be able to gank bottom quite effectively. A lot of times that the Braum just gives away the 2v2 in the bot side, but he makes the 3v3 when the jungler comes down that much more effective, especially when you have a jungler like Trundle who doesn't bring a lot of CC with his Winter's Bite. So, like that. Otherwise, it's targetable bans. Dan, you're not getting your Jax.
They're really just trying to limit. I'm surprised that Jax would be the priority here over something like the Malphite, but respect, giving Dan that nod and acknowledgement here.
It probably means that Cabo does want to go traditional tank, so banning out bruisers, it's denying Dan just getting a pick like a bruiser to scale up into the lane, like a Jax.
And now additionally, we've got the Leona locked as well. Leona Ezreal, a strong lane, but definitely not one that we see very regularly. And Team Vitality looks like they're respecting the potential for this last pick to be very disruptive to their plans with Aphelios, so they're just taking the Tahm Kench.
So we assume that Cabo is going to grab a tank with some sort of engage right now to round out the comp. Things like Ornn is still available. He's been a big proponent of the Scion. The Tahm Kench obviously responds to the Leona. If you have a back long range engage with the ultimate, you can try to find that Aphelios in the back line and then send Azir and Lee Sin to ruin his day. But instead, we take a right turn. It's not a traditional tank. It is the Volibear.
I'm excited for Cabochard on Volibear. No doubt this champion has looked very strong so far. We've seen it just the one game, I believe, in the hands of Gen X and the one game in the jungle. So ready to see what it can do into the top side. Picking Kayle, though, into it feels so hard. Volibear can be so oppressive early on, whereas Kayle is generously a do-nothing champion early game.
I think that we sent Kayle a little bit short. She has some decent poke, but the issue is that I mean, maybe you assume that Volibear pushes anyway automatically in his kit, so theoretically she should never be in any danger as the waves kind of crash into her.
Sure.
The danger will come when Corki gets packaged and they can start blitzing up at Kayle to start diving her, and Volibear can just sprint through those towers. So I think that's maybe a play to watch out for, but hopefully Dan's okay on a very scaling pick.
And scaling seems to be the story of the Misfits Gaming composition. We have the Azir as well as the Kayle trying to match out the Corki and the Aphelios. See what Kobbe can get done, especially on this Ezreal. He's kind of the crucial piece here. Whereas Cabochard on the opposite side for Vitality. Can this Volibear be a massive bully? Stop this KO from freely scaling into the late game? Those are my big questions as we get ready here for our second game of the day. Vitality versus Misfits. Froskurinn, 2-3. We played the bottom, and now we're playing the guys fighting to be in the middle of the table. I think they're safely in the middle of the table, but want to be fighting for more. Want to be fighting to get into the top, as Excel is now very clearly, I think, hot on their heels.
And we've seen peaks and troughs for Vitality Misfits. I think a lot of fans were really surprised with Vitality, especially their bot lane comp and Labrov. You already talked about them and how well that they were performing, particularly when they got their hands on the Ezreal. This time around, of course, on a powerful champion like the Aphelios. And Misfits had that bright flash initially when they came in. You know, Kobbe was popping off, and now it's been fairly inconsistent, and maybe that's just, you know, settling kind of back into this new normal of playing online games, playing in the team facility, getting back into the groove of summer. But it's always going to be that same narrative, like, time is ticking, guys, and Misfits were one of those teams that was kind of like pushed up to say, you could theoretically fight for that fourth ticket, but with how Vitality have come up stronger, how SK are showing up stronger, it's not so clear-cut anymore, and you're still fighting the likes of Rogue, Mad Lions, and Origin. And
it's crazy, because when we saw those stats earlier, what you saw is it's a distinct upgrade for the side of Vitality in the bottom lane. It looks completely better statistically. There's a lot less deaths early game. It's much more consistent.
Don't back up.
But overall, it's still not enough to guarantee Vitality a spot at the top of the table, right? Even with all these marked improvements, and the increase in the damage, it's just not enough these days.
Something that is really exciting is kind of the individual performance of a guy like Labrov. You and I were having at the very start of the split, you know, the discussion about supports. It feels like it's Mickey, it's Hilly, it's Kaiser, and then it's a very large gap The Vanders are coming in, Labrovs are stepping up, Limit is having good games on Thresh, and that's what's really exciting as a fan of the LEC, is seeing the supports really contesting that top end, because Hilly and Mickey are both having some off games, and Kaiser right now looks far and away the best support. But there's chances for guys like Limit and Labrov to start putting their name out there.
Absolutely. And one man who has sadly not been in a discussion is DOS. So we're going to have to see how he matches up against one of the rising stars of the support role. Maybe he can change a bit of the story that we've seen around him so far, which has been quite underwhelming. But for now, Labrov and Comp holding on to pressure here in the bottom side, as Kobbe and DOS are just forced to back away. See how that changes, if there's going to be some jungle influence early on. But for now, both junglers are on the top side of the map. And inevitably, when we talk about Misfits Spring, we always think about Razork, because he was the guy that set the pace of the game, that got things done. And have to see if he can do more this game, because MG's already top lane for a gank. And if this works, Misfits are going to be in trouble.
Now, Corki, Milica does have TP. The wave is stacking. This is ambitious.
The dive, they just traded flash for flash. Of course, very easy for them to rinse and repeat that play in the future.
Yeah, and now that Kayle doesn't have flash, she loses control of this wave. Dunzo. It's over, especially against a Volibear that has the ability to run you down. So, like you said, not just rinse and repeat. I think that lane phase might be done.
Not going to get picked up here. Cancels out an ability. DOS getting traded back on. Just a bit of a back and forth, but they will bully Vitality off the way, force them back into their tower for a brief moment.
Someone enhance on that screen.
Zoom in. What do we got? I like it. Aggressive trades. Once again, Labrov going to be in trouble. They force out the flash. Well played by the Misfits bottom lane, maximizing this early aggression. Get the flash and the heal for nothing except for the ignite from DOS.
Yeah, DOS and Kobbe get the full green lights. The fact that they saw that Trundle, NG had peeked his head up top side. They have a big wave pushing, so got the slow push behind them to crash back in and take hyper-aggressive trades. Fortunately for Comp, he still does have his flash as well as a Tahm Kench behind him, so it's still relatively hard to punish, unlike this Kayle Volibear situation. So this wave gets away from Dan.
Can't see the hand gestures, but it's just like, there's like a mess on your child's floor, and you're like, you need to clean up this whole this thing that's going on. Oh no. Well, NG's going to try to clean it up. Let's see. Moves to the top side.
Vitality have a small window to try to punish this before the Drake is back up, and Misfits can trade the Drake for this type of pressure.
Dan didn't see the Trundle. Oh no, that's bad. That's the speed up gone. He's now going to move in. He's going to grab the shield as they move under tower. Dan, goodbye to you, sir. The Kayle scaling is not going to happen.
It's not going to be a fun time, and it's going to get even worse when Corki starts participating with a lot of these roams. And we talked about that small window. Razork couldn't just immediately trade that for a Drake. Corki's under his tower, so the only option that Razork has is kind of peek into the jungle and maybe look for a really aggressive play here that is going to fizzle out because of this control ward. So good timing window from Vitality to find like the perfect moment to make that happen for him.
And so often we see people burn flashes and ganks and not come back to that lane. So I'm happy that we saw it not only just happen generally, but happen so quickly here for Vitality. And for Razork, now he's on the back foot here. The good news is he has perfect vision on the bottom side of the jungle. He knows exactly where NG is, and maybe that means he can stop any of these future plays. But Razork is a guy that we've had our eye on, because sadly for him, inconsistency has been the story of the season.
Yeah, but with Febiven on to the Azir and level 5 that much closer to level 6, I just want Razork to kind of go back to basics, team up with Febiven, look for those Shurima Truffles. Wow.
Truffles, sure.
I had truffles for lunch. Sorry. Just to set him up for those kills, because that was like the bread and butter of what made Misfits so successful.
Yeah, you can see almost double the K+A at 15. Misfits' early game was incredible in the first half of Spring especially. Probably this, I would argue, strongest early game team in the first half of the split.
Issue is that poor little Azir is laning against Corki, who still has flash and W, so Febiven's going to be on perfect behavior if he wants to hit the sweep and set up his Lee Sin.
No.
Otherwise, I think we're fighting for mid priority and then maybe some plays in the river.
Ooh, and now it looks like Razork is going to poke his head in. This is going to deny the back of Labrov and Comp, because they have to stick around here to potentially force this fight. This could be a big one. Devour's there. Comp has a solid gun setup to get things kicked off.
That's teleport on Volibear. Even the fact that Comp and Labrov have inside track on that Drake, you're looking at Dan without TP and like a Kayle, and you're looking at Cabo with TP and a Volibear. You're like, maybe not. Not this one.
Not this time, I think. Safe to say. And Comp and Labrov, of course, strong enough here with the shotgun just to push the lane out again. Not going to lose too much on this one. Grab the gold that they can. Not clear if Das and Kobbe are just going to, looks like, try to freeze the wave here rather than shove it back in.
He's got a coal and he's got a sapphire crystal.
Ah.
Kobbe has one coal right now, and it's not to fight anyone.
He's a farmer by trade. We should change coal. It needs to be, I understand it's like, it is farming related.
Like a farming hoe?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a scythe, you know, for like coaling wheat or whatever, but like we should change it to be even more farming related. Like it should be like a hat with a little piece of straw and like a little man, you know what I'm saying? Like the maximum. You don't know what I'm saying.
I think it's
fine.
too literal.
I just think items should set expectations for what you're going to get. You know what I mean? People should understand.
I'm setting expectations for you right now. He's got a little scythe to farm, and he has a tear because he can't do anything. He's crying. We've swapped.
Perfect, Froskurinn. That's what I wanted to understand.
So it's, I hate
Similarly,
you.
tier in the mid lane for Milica because he's getting blasted in the farm department right now. Almost 20 in favor of Febiven. Of course, there was a wave crashing, so he gets back a few, but still 17 in Febiven's favor. We'll see if Milica manages to get a blue buff anytime soon because Febiven's life is definitely easier in this early lane phase. As Lost Chapter, a significantly more relevant item than the tier of the goddess early on.
Also, with that blue buff and that Lost Chapter, like, Azir is unmovable from that lane. He will have mana for years.
I was trying to figure out how we could transition that into a 200 years joke, but
no
one's ever going mid. We've now seen the lane swap come out. This is the classic, I believe, 8-minute Herald swap that we do see come in. Both teams are matching this. Neither one has, or Vitality rather, with a slight tempo advantage as they have pushed in the wave, so this one is much easier for them. And Vitality so far have not opted to contest. Maybe we see Razork go for the 50-50.
Cabochard has inside track again. He walked up through the river. I believe he was spotted by a ward, which dissuades Razork for even fishing with a Q on that one. So good news for Vitality fans. You guys have kind of been first to the punch on all of these plays, finding great windows to secure the Drake, to look for the Herald, the ganks on top lane. If you're a Misfits fan, you're like, we've got Kayle, we've got Azir. It's okay, we can survive this.
And you know, for all the difficulty that Dan has had, he's staying relatively even in farm, and Cabochard's not really been able to push that advantage any further. While he does have pressure in the lane, he hasn't really had any dive threat quite yet. And with NG on the top side, it doesn't look like they're going to be trying it anytime soon. Razork is in the area. They know NG's coming.
So is Corki. Everyone's waddling up here. Still teleport on Cabochard, no TP on Dan.
Opt to use the Herald immediately instead of saving it because they know they have a limited window for the setup here. Do not get to go for the ideal usage, but Das going in. Very bold. Luckily, the Eclipse is going to keep him healthy for now, but in goes the Bear. Cabochard now needs to make his way out of this one. He will just waddle away. Doesn't take tower aggro because Labrov already has it, and it looks like we're going to get 4. Just 3, maybe? Maybe? No, 3 plates.
Okay. Good news if you're a Vitality fan. You use the Herald. Oh, no one died. Good news if you're a Misfits fan. Thank you, picture-in-picture in the bottom left corner. Dan gets some chance to breathe. He now had this Volibear leave his lane. He got 2 waves, picking up plates. And so what do you value more? Do you value the plates? Uh-oh.
Now Razork going in. This is actually such a good series of play for Misfits. He's going to get pulled under the tower. Razork just going to grab that one. Kench now coming in, but it's too little too late. Maybe they can finish off this kill. Razork can get out if he manages to land a Q on the Grom. Q on the Grom. Reactivate. W to the ward. Flashed over the wall! Woo! I love a good Lee Sin escape. Of course, potentially easy to predict there, but still well executed.
Okay, and meanwhile, Dan's still just down there farming. He's got multiple waves. I think that's 3.5, almost 4 waves, and some tower plates to him. I actually think across map, this is a big win for Misfits. Picked up a kill on Razork. Razork maybe gets some confidence back with some of those leads in mechanics. Dan, a lot of that pressure alleviated off of him. Now has a CS lead over his little Volibear.
Yeah, and you can see the gold in his favor as well. Just looks good across the board. And Misfits, of course, with, I think, overall, stronger scaling threats on their team. And similarly, the Trundle Volibear are going to have a very difficult time in late game teamfights killing or isolating a carry with the utility of that Kayle ult.
I mean, it will come down to execution. I'm really glad that you bring it up, and I can't wait till we start seeing some of those fights, which we may actually get one in 30 seconds. We'll see what the teams are keen to do. But with the Trundle pillar and with Volibear, like, Trundle just works so well with Volley. We saw it happen to Kayle, and I expect that to kind of continue to be the thing. Azir and Ezreal can reposition themselves, but someone is going to be left vulnerable. So I guess you're hoping, if you're Misfits, that with my Ezreal E, my Shurima shuffle and disengage, and my Kayle ultimate, that I can survive the Trundle Volibear Freljord assault. Is that how you say it? Freljord?
Yeah, F-R-E. It's pronounced L. I don't remember if there's an L.
I'm American,
it's
forgive me.
weird, fine. Freljord. It's very Arctic-y. Freljord.
Oh, no.
Well, I just imagine if we'd stayed on Freljord for another 30 seconds, just how uncomfortable, like anyone who tunes into the cast while we're just sitting here going, Freljord. for Gord. Anyway, Vitality now pushing up, and the thing we have to remember is Aphelios is incredibly strong if he's just allowed to sit down and throw down damage. Labrov going to pull back here. Comp's going to get swallowed before he gets stunned, and Comp's now spit back into safety. Potentially an early flash, but giving a lot of respect to the TP. Dan coming in on the backside. Big slow comes in on the back of that Cutlass, but it's NG who has now been caught out. Fnatic, Misfits more than happy to just take the free kill there.
That's super free for Razork right there. Like, he went to the back line. He didn't have flash on the Lee Sin. It was going to be really hard to execute on the insect, and he got the instantaneous respect flash from Aphelios. Like, oh, please don't kick me back. And Razork's like, I didn't even have flash, but thanks for next time, bro.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about this composition is all the tools that they have to dive into the backline between the Lee Sin, the Leona, and also, at this point in the game, the Scoop, the Shrima Shuffle, as you mentioned from Febiven. It's just difficult to be Comp. He can't really DPS check anyone at this stage of the game.
And as we kind of take stock on the other end of this lane phase, you know, things were going pretty sideways for Misfits, but quick thinking to match the lane swap that came out of Vitality. They managed to preserve Dan, and now coming into this mid game, Misfits are feeling much more comfortable. Now, on the other side, that doesn't take away the fact that Vitality still had great Rift Herald control as well as Dragon control, but have lost the plot on the back end of this lane phase, and especially this team fight.
Absolutely have, but heads up use of the TP from Dan, and NG sadly just caught in no man's land there. And I got to say, we put pressure on Razork especially to show up in this game. And while the first play definitely went in favor of NG, he has been everywhere he's needed to be since that moment to make sure that his team does not fall any further behind and finding a few moments of his own as well.
Here comes the pressure of the dive, so this is what should have been Vitality's plan. Find this Kayle and really punish it, especially when she's never going to have push priority until she gets that level 11.
But still, they're hesitating, and rightfully so, as Doss is already in the area. They do have a massive man advantage. They could try to go for it anyway. Volibear ready to go over the wall at a moment's notice, but a good ward from Doss, I believe, will spot that out, so they cannot find the flank, and the wave cleared away means that window of opportunity is lost. CS being lost on the top side as well, so Vitality trying, it seems too hard to force that one, as Milica's going to give up about 6 creeps in price for that play.
And now the question is, will we start to see some desperation from Vitality when I don't think that we need to see them force that hard? I like the fact that they're trying to find these opportunities with their composition, but usually at this point, teams sometimes get a little bit bored, they get a little bit nervous, they get a little bit frantic, and they start to try to force around mid lane. So that's kind of where my eyes are, and if anyone's going to make a mistake or really just stay the course.
Of course, the package now used. Razork was fishing for a play there. He's going to move in and take away this blue buff. Like the play. Now coming in as Cabochard will collapse the wave there. But as you said, Froskurinn, this is not a game that needs to be played quickly. Of course, I'm always going to love to see it personally if teams can just accelerate early leads, but there are so many scaling threats on both sides.
I mean, it's being played quickly, just not in the way of like kills. These teams are constantly swapping around the top laners, matching with their bot laners, the junglers are falling around. It's just not reflected in the scoreboard, but this game is going very quickly.
It's like fencing, you know? It's mostly just trading blocks. Very few actual touches, actual blows.
Yes.
Yes, fencing, yes.
Yeah, yes.
I'd say based on that anime I watched about fencing.
Okay, they got Herald, it's going mid lane.
It's fine. 15 minutes. Less than a 1,000 gold lead. Dragon's about even. Vitality's only sizable advantages are these towers. But keep in mind, as Misfits take down some of that standing gold, things are going to actually shift into Misfits' favor in terms of overall gold score. Good news is Comp is getting a lot of time to farm up. Has completed the first item. We know 2-item Aphelios can be a game changer as we get later on.
And Misfits trying with their lane assignments again to keep this Kayle safe. You can see that Kobbe is matching against the Volibear, has more movement abilities to keep the Volibear kind of at arm's length, whereas Kayle's just trying to pick the free farm that Aphelios is pushing.
Yeah, I actually like the decision there to match those two champions together, as neither one really has the chase potential to kill the other. Of course, for Kayle, you just want that time to scale. It gets easier now that she has the Gunblade, but of course in the mid lane, the wave is being cleared out from a safe distance by Febiven. The poke from the Aphelios and the Corki. Difficult to deal with, but Misfits are holding on.
This Rift Herald feels like it's not going to have much impact because it is Azir Corki. And you can tell that ideally you'd want to put it down mid lane and kill that mid lane tower, but I actually feel like at this point, it's more of just to deny the Herald and make sure that Vitality can't continue to kind of break open this map and continue to have a lot of free farm lanes for your Kayle, your Ezreal, and your Azir. Like, Razork might find a window to put it down, but I feel like this is going to be like you get the charge off on the Herald, maybe as the Dragon spawns to try to get some control over that, but I don't think it's going to take the tower down.
The important thing, though, is that since it is now past 14 minutes, there's no more plates, so the Herald is going to be a lot more effective, and all it takes is for Vitality to be not in the area or behind the play one time when Razork is there and there's a wave stacked to grab mid lane tower, but not something a trap we expect Misfits to, or rather Vitality, to walk into. Comp, though, has to be careful as Razork will move down. Luckily, they have the vision on the side of Vitality to spot him out.
He needs to drop this.
Here we go.
He wants to make a pick.
We can't ward hop until he...
That's why I'm saying he needs to drop it before the team fight happens. I don't want a scenario where he thinks that he's dropped it and then he does try to go for that maneuver and can't.
The classic Lee Sin try to hop over the wall just to channel Rift Herald in the pit. Who hasn't been there?
This is hard.
Big setup. Comp on the backside, not super healthy, but keep in mind because he has Gravitum, he has excellent setup to get a team fight kicked off. He's going to look for the picks. Razork now locked up. It's Cabochard on the backside, and here comes the bear. Razork going to try to leap out to safety. Cabochard going to grab that shield. It's getting lower, but they are still going to be able to secure the dragon on the side of Misfits. Doth not able to contest. Razork now moving to the pit. He's going to smite out to stay healthy. Tahm Kench now is used to devour. The kickback comes through. Kayle ult used, but not to block any damage. Comp now push off from the side. Febiven takes down one of the primary threats, and now Misfits are winning the fight as they push back Vitality.
And this can actually be huge because now this Rift Herald, if it goes down, will mean so much more.
Manages to grab another
There you
one,
go.
and there it is. Froskurinn instantly. Gonna use that one, gonna be able to break mid lane. Not a lot that Milica can do here. Wave is a bit behind schedule, but they should be able to push it in before Vitality can't contest.
Razork should threaten the dive. There he goes.
Oh. Good positioning from Milica to play towards the top side of the lane. Know that he can retreat into that upper jungle instead of back into mid lane where Razork surely would have found the kill.
Okay, so but think about it this way. Like it pays off for Misfits because they were able to play the team fight on the dragon really well, pick up the necessary kills, and then make sure that Vitality had no members to contest the Herald going down its spawn. But if Misfits lose this dragon fight, don't get those kills, then you probably completely waste the Herald and you lose so much. And this is kind of why Misfits still sit in that pocket of being a middle tier team and having some of these inconsistencies.
That said, I think got to give praise where praise is due to Febiven here to seeing the opportunity to just force the 1v1. Labrov unfortunately split off from the man that he is supposed to protect. Does use that Devour effectively to keep Trundle alive as long as possible, but in that case, he cannot be the get-out-of-jail-free card for this Aphelios, and it costs the team dearly.
Now at this point, as we kind of take stock of the map, Kayle, picking up that double kill, now has the Gunblade in her back pocket, which was a very rough early game for her, is completely turned around, and now you can very clearly see the win conditions for Misfits and a clear highway for them to follow. So if you're looking across on Vitality side, you need to start getting more creative. You have Abyssal Voyage, you have a Corki mobility, you need to start using that to find picks, especially on an open map.
Absolutely do, but it looks like Febiven instead the one who wants to find a pick. That's not going to look too good for him, though. Shut down onto Febiven.
That will count.
That's, we'll call that an oopsies. Good news is Dan's pushing the bottom side, but Febiven cannot be proud of that one, as Vitality will now get a mid lane tower for free. And from absolutely no advantage there, Vitality suddenly find a pretty big one by taking down that tower.
There's that moment where Febiven like walks around the corner and the entire enemy team's there. He's like, why? Who invited you?
And, oh man, I don't. All right, well, Cabochard is going to get pushed back here. I don't know what else to say about that.
He can chase him down.
That's good. Gunblade activated the slowdown coming down. He's going to pull Lee Sin back with him. The kicking back to the ball. If he gets the cooldown back up, will be enough healing to buy more time, but it does not happen. And they're going to grab yet another kill here. 4-1 for Dan after that start.
Mechanically very well executed by Dan and Razork down there, but I also do want to give a shout out to Kobbe and Doss in the mid lane. They covered the Baron, dissuaded, because obviously you see the jungler bottom for Vitality. You saw the ping. They pinged the Baron. They tapped it, but Doss and Kobbe were right there being like, we dare you. Step up.
Yeah, and outside of the oopsie from Febiven there, it's been pretty good from Misfits overall. Recovering well after Kayle got pushed back a little bit in the early game, and good on Dan, I think, to stay even in CS as long as he did. And now that he has his items, you can see him very quickly pulling ahead.
But Vitality's still not out yet. Taking the item check-in. We don't have to say it. You know all the buzzwords. The big items have come out. Vitality's composition will still do a ton of damage if Misfits aren't on best behavior. And this doesn't look like best behavior.
It does not. But now Milica is going to run for the hills here, taking a lot of damage to get poked off. G is going to pull back here. Guardian procced. He will not be able to take him over the wall, though. Razork, good patience on the kick. Does not reactivate too soon. That's going to be ulti now coming in. Labrov going to be sacrificed, but no. And she can't even make his way out. 2 quick kills picked up by Misfits. they have a ton of damage. They can just start this Baron up.
They're absolutely going to, because Febiven has teleport. He's just going to TP back after buying and having full health. Here comes Bird.
Froskurinn, say it with me. 200 years, but Aphelios does not have the right guns to get these people out of the pit. He has to get way too close to get anything to happen. The package is here for Milica, though. Maybe they can try to stop this one. Cabochard has already been taken low. He can't even get to the backline quite yet, but still, Milica's going to go in anyway. Comp now isolated. Kobbe stepping forward, but still a lot of damage. Cabochard thinking about this one. Razork low. If they kill the jungler, that's the shutdown. They kill the jungler. It's a 50-50. Misfits immediately pulled back. Fantastic discipline, but now Milica has to pull back. They burned all their cooldowns. That should have been so easy for Misfits, but the patience and the play there from Vitality means that Misfits cannot secure that Baron.
And it wasn't even Aphelios, it was all Corki!
All right, that's a first. Usually it's the Aphelios, I'm going to be honest, but good on Comp to hold his ground there. And very bold play from Milica, and now Vitality are just going to start it themselves. There's a ward in the pit. It's been spotted. They know this is happening, but they're also low. They haven't had a chance to reset. And Comp now has the blue gun. He has the Inferno. He can just shred the entire team if they try to group up and walk into this pit. Vitality, just a gift wrap Baron. Febiven gift wraps a kill. Misfits as a whole gift wrap a Baron. And man, they might as well be a charitable organization at this point.
Whoa, Vitality stole it away from Misfits. That was some amazing performance by Milica there, especially on the Corki, to poke people off, find the necessary damage. And we said the itemization has come out. The Mirror Mana is complete on Corki. He has the Trinity Force. If you give him time, he will start taking pot shots out of you. And this fight goes for so long, and the Baron setup for so long, that it's like fish in a barrel for Milica.
Yeah, and you can see here that Misfits feel really confident in this one. You saw on the screen as well. Dan in the meantime, while this is playing, got the tier 2 tower. The Dragon is secured for Misfits, but this one's on Milica. Cabochard.
Look at this package. This is a bold move.
This is something you can do only because your character is unstoppable in this animation.
Goes right across the top of the Baron pit. He's then sitting on the back. He knows that Razork is low.
And here comes the boop. That's the big one. That's the shutdown, and that's a huge turning point in the game.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Comp did also do some damage. He had white-red Aphelios, but you called it out. It's hard to step forward on that low-range gun when you're against an Azir and an Ezreal.
And now he has the perfect ideal setup for either kicking a team fight off or winning it outright if he can land that ultimate. And Milica just gets to go back, buy a bit of AD, buy a bit of crit chance. Aphelios now 2.5 items in. It looks like we're going to get the Phantom Dancer next instead of the Death Dance. Of course, Death Dance pretty useless on the current patch, but still very OP here on 10-12.
And we've had such a ping-pong game. You know, it was Vitality that came out swinging in the early game, then Misfits get the Dragon fight, starts rotating in power for them, and suddenly it looks like Misfits are in control. But Vitality holds strong on the Baron, a very high-pressure situation. The newest member in their mid laner finally pulls it off, and now they're back in control of this game with just as much scaling potential.
And that's something I wanted to talk about, is that scaling potential, because whenever we talk about scaling potential, people always want the black and white answer. This team scales better than that team, whatever. But what you talked about was execution, and execution has been a big question for both these teams. We've seen fumbles on both sides, so now it just feels like the team that is more consistent as we get later in the game, the team that finds the right fights, just takes this, no questions.
And I feel like if you're a Misfits fan, what you really need is you need to fight around the Azir. The more that a team fight is moving around and Azir really has to shift, he doesn't get to just stand and fight with his soldiers, the less power that he's going to have. Whereas with Vitality, it feels like they can just kind of run you down, fight you front to back, and really threaten your backline, regardless of if you have an Azir, an Ezreal, a Kayle.
Razork, though, going to get aggressive here, potentially questionable as Comp is waiting over the wall. They are going to back off instead. Team's ready to fight in the jungle. Very difficult place to fight. Aphelios definitely not the ideal gun combo for this one, but the Runaans will make the slow setups for anyone else that much easier, and Milica remains a massive threat. Ezreal are try to start something. Of course, the Zenith Blade not going to connect from DOS, so Misfits are just going to instead focus on clearing the wave. Good marks to get set up. He can now find the double snare. Comp playing very far forward, but not afraid, as Labrov is there to back him up if he does overstep.
Has excellent sieging weapons because he is green and purple Aphelios. You can see Comp really understanding the power of his champion right now, stepping forward, chunking them out on this tower. They just need to make sure that Razork doesn't connect with any of these Qs, as Razork's actually just given away the tower, falling back to the Raptor camp, and the Leona ult doesn't hit them. As long as the Sonic Wave doesn't come through and the Leona ult doesn't hit, Vitality's Comp is really strong in a sieging maneuver with that item, or those guns from Aphelios, as well as the Corki.
And also, attention now to NG. You know, 1-4 obviously not the best scoreline, but that pillar is make or break in the late game. If you interrupt that Lee Sin flank, you can just deny the entire engage from the side of Misfits. This is a team that goes forward only because of the Lee Sin and the Leona. So if either of those cooldowns are interrupted, really just limits Misfits' options.
Which it feels like now at this point, Misfits are actually just kind of one item away from matching this front-to-back playstyle if Razork and DOS can't help start up the perfect team fight for them. So it's not like Misfits will just lose from their composition at this point, but I do think they need to slow down the pace of the game, unfortunately, because another Infernal's going to be spawning. Good thing it's not the sole point, and just start getting to those third item breakpoints for them.
And this is a difficult time because while Dan is level 15, approaching level 16, obviously big power point for the Kayle as the attacks just get so much more consistent, reliable damage instead of waiting for it to scale up in fights. Febiven is only level 15 to the level 16 of Milica as he's getting closer and closer, so need to hit some of those major breakpoints.
Death Dance also about to come in for Kobbe.
Razork gone. Goodbye.
I can't.
And this is...
I blinked. I literally looked away at my notepad and I looked back and he was gone.
And Froskurinn, I'm sad about this because while it has been a back and forth game, I feel like I've had so many positive points for both sides. But Febiven getting caught out, Razork getting caught out, the way Vitality contested that Baron. Obviously Vitality deserves props for it, but Misfits also a little bit questionable. DOS, the man I usually have so much negative things to say about, is doing fine, but then you still have these generously oopsie kind of moments where players are just getting caught out.
It does feel like Misfits macro is still inconsistent, and that when they do find their victories or they find these high moments, is because there's still a lot of talented individual players on this roster, especially guys like Razork and Febiven, and they do have their pop-off moments. But, you know, until Misfits kind of even out some of their macro decision-making, it's going to continue to be like, okay, does Febiven have an amazing game? If yes, we'll probably win. If no, we're probably going to come to a coin toss and have back-and-forth games that can just be anyone's.
And think about how big this is for Milica, because when you come into this game, you automatically, we're looking at Kobbe, we're looking at the Danish versus the Greek bot lane, but mid lane has to be mentioned too, because Febiven is one of the OG greats, and for Milica, he is still very young in this league. Of course, he was supposed to be here last season, only now has gotten to play, so for him to be winning so decidedly after falling behind like 20 CS in the lane phase is a damn fine look for such a new player.
Yeah, and that Baron fight in particular, I think, is a highlight moment of his, at least for this game in particular. But again, what I wanted to talk about before Razork just got removed from the face of the earth was the Death Dance build coming in for Ezreal. Now, obviously, we've seen this all over the world. It's quite common, it's quite standard, but I really like it when it's paired with Iceborne Gauntlet. In this case, it is the Trinity Force, so you're still going to be putting out so much damage, but it is something to look for because that build makes Ezreal practically invincible. His armor is so high when he has Iceborne Gauntlet as well as the Death Stance that he's like unkillable. So Kobbe going for the damage, has the Trinity Force, doesn't necessarily need the CC. Maybe I would have liked it more though. I think an Iceborne Gauntlet on this this comp might have helped. With
2 additional damage threats, I'm inclined to agree with you, Froskurinn. He doesn't have to carry the damage burden himself. There are other players on the team that can offer that much. And of course, one of them is Dan, who is a 3-item Kayle, now level 16, so it's incredibly strong. DOS wants to get this one kicked off. The entire team now trying to fight through. A good true shot barrage to get it started, but that's Aphelios throwing down to the backside. Razork's going to miss the kick, but the flash away from comp is clean. Now Razork's caught in the back line. Corki throwing down the package over the top. Razork taken down. NG continuing to push forward. The fight's going to slow down. It's the 4v4. Both teams debate. Do they want to continue to commit? Dan incredibly low. Did not find a good time to use that ult. Kayle ult, so good against burst. So weak against extended team fights. Now Misfits are going to push in, knowing that the Baron is what's on the line. They need to have the same miracle moment Milica had, but they may not get the chance. Milica flashing over the wall into Kobbe. Febiven now trying to push it back, but Comp is still here. Comp is still uncontested. But no, Dan going in. He's going to clean this one up. Dan, you absolute madman, flashing in with the ult on top of him. Misfits take the fight.
And the damage was split from Vitality. They thought that they made the pick. They're fighting the front half. They're fighting the Kayle, but they split it. They're not able to burst the Kayle, and Dan just annihilates them from the side. Misfits had to rely on their individual players to show up, and it will cover their macro this case because they'll get the Baron.
And Froskurinn, this game might be over. Kayle is already pushing down.
Just got too many members in front of her.
You're right. Got ahead of myself.
It's okay. I was
ready. I was ready.
I like where the energy's at.
Yeah, the Baron took a little too long, lost a few too many minions.
Okay, so we're going way back.
Blue buff.
Thank you, observers. Kayle did have blue this entire time. Here we go, the team fight. And Vitality play this really cute little vision game as soon as the team fight kind of slows down. Milica has the choice to make. He falls back with his team, kind of gets behind everyone, immediately deletes Razork. They then stand on this control ward. They think that they get the pick, and at first I'm like, I think Vitality are gonna win this because so much damage goes on Labrov and he doesn't die. But then I look down at the bottom of your screen where Dan is, and he just deletes people.
This is Kayle. The damage scaling on this champion is absolutely insane, and the thing to notice here is that we talked about the tankiness of the Death Dance Ezreal. Melissa tries to one-shot Kobbe, but he can't. Item's too strong.
To be fair to Tandan, he didn't have to do much. He basically just applied pressure to Comp, and Febiven and Kobbe did everything else. Take it back. Wasn't all Dandan.
Yeah, true. I mean, but Dandan right there flashing in aggressively to take down Comp is a solid thing, and now we've got a very different game, a very back-and-forth game as the story continues to be. Soul Point up for Vitality, but Misfits are probably going to grab a third Drake and match them. But the bigger question is, can Vitality survive this onslaught? Because Dandan's got ult again. He pairs it with Febiven, Shurima Shuffle. They have a pretty reliable way to kick off a fight.
I think if you see Razork on the mid lane, you pick now to be your moment and try to force the 4v5. The issue is the hard engage. You have Volibear and Trundle Pillar, like, good luck.
Yeah, Aphelios ult could be what they need to start it off, but with so many champions with dashes, it's very difficult. Instead, they're going to try to turn this one. Comp locked up, the kick connects, Labrov spits out, but the mark is still there. Cabochard now going forward, kick back to the team, but definitely not the fight that they wanted. Dandan uses the ult, that's going to be big. Now Comp tries to turn it, they caught out Dandan. Dandan should go down here, but no, God, that Kayle damage is just too much. The shutdown comes through, and Misfits, they win the fight when it matters most. Execution at the end of the day coming in clutch, and Kayle just a little bit too powerful to be stopped in those fights. Misfits will take the game here against Vitality.
I mean, is it Kayle? Comp walks straight forward into it. He's like, I've got red-white Aphelios, I'm ready to go. And Kayle just two-shot him.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kayle making Aphelios look mighty balanced to all those skeptics out there.
Or Aphelios just walking into...
I mean, he's red-white Aphelios. We've talked about this. He's like essentially unkillable in a duel, and Kayle's like, oh, okay. So that's what you thought. You thought you were broken.
The range of Azir, Ezreal, and Kayle giving Aphelios a little bit of a hard time to find the necessary damage in those team fights.
And well played by Misfits. I was a doubter of the Kayle pick, but they make it work. And your key player of the game at LEC on Twitter is the plays Dandan, Razork, or Kobbe.
Where is Febiven? That's fine.
To be fair, Febiven had a very special moment that game that may have taken him off the list, but he had many other highlight moments that maybe should have put him
corner.
I mean, so did Razork. It's Dandan or Kobbe. I'm going to be honest. Razork had great times that game as well, but those are who stand out to me. Now, after the break, we're going to hear what Kobbe thinks about that win, so don't go anywhere.
This is my creed. The boots that make me faster. The items that make me stronger. The potions that I drink. I get the best to be more powerful, so my champion rises to the top. But all this leveling up means nothing if I don't level up myself. It's the healthy potions I drink in real life that make me stronger. Because you can only rule the game when you realize you are your most important champion. To play like a pro, eat like a pro.
Welcome back to the LEC. Misfits won their game against Vitality here in week 3, and I have Kobbe with me to talk about this victory. Thank you, Kobbe, for joining me. Congrats about the game.
Thank you.
How hard was it for you? Because looking from the outside, it seems like it was a pretty close game here.
Yeah, there were definitely. I mean, I think this game was just decided on a few like high, or I don't know how to call it, like intense moments, right? Where we had really clear calls. We messed up some of them, but the other ones kind of won us the game, especially the one on mid, where I face check into 4 people, and then suddenly Dan just exploded everyone, right? So yeah, I would say there's clear positives and negatives for this game, but most important, the win. So yeah.
You won. You came out on top, and that was a very important game for you if you guys want to match the top 4 in the LEC. And I just want to take a step back here and talk about the draft a bit, because there's been a discussion around Kayle specifically, and why did you draft this champion, and what was its role within his lineup? Tell me about the game plan you had here.
So Kayle, from my knowledge, has a decent matchup into the Volibear. Especially later on, he just kind of get a free lane. He died early though one time, which was kind of, I mean, in the end it didn't hurt too much, but generally if you can just farm up, you'll be really strong in the side lane, and even in team fights, as we saw. And then on the Kayle side, you want like one guy that can at least go in and like suicide, or not really suicide because he has the Kayle ult, right? But just go in and tank, so Kayle can deal damage for free.
Yeah. And
so that was kind of our idea.
Yeah, I can see that, and it was very successful. And you don't always know when a Kayle is going to be that impactful until you see the damage. And I want you to take a look at the last team fight you took against Vitality here, because looking at it, I could see Vitality come out on top. And in the end, you guys managed to save the day. So explain how you made it happen.
So yeah, it's really close. I think we got a good engage because we saw Corki on top, but he TP's in and he's here already. He's installed some time. We were like trading 1 for 1, and now it's, I mean, we're actually kind of sweating here because you can see our health bars are going pretty low, and they can go Nash, so we kind of have to face check. And here I'm like, yeah, I mean, I have my E, so I just face check, and I guess I baited them or something because Corki flashed on me, didn't kill me, and I mean, Dan just one-shots the rest of the team. So yeah, I think we had pretty good coordination in fights, and Dan played really well as well. So
Dan played really well, and you with this Mystic Shot and the Death Dance, we know that there's one nerf coming on this item. Do you think it's legit?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you saw here how broken it was. I face checked 4 people and I didn't die. Like, this item is pretty busted right now, so yeah. Yeah, nerfs coming in a few weeks. We'll see about that later. But now I want to know, you've been back in Europe for 3 weeks now. So what do you think about the competition and how things changed since you left Europe? So it's a bit weird, obviously, because I wasn't here for one split, and some things changed, or players got better, players I didn't know of, and I just kind of had to adjust a bit. But I'm definitely enjoying the competition. I think every game is pretty competitive, not just for us, but for everyone. There's a lot of good teams, and that's why now it's like, it's so important for us to just keep working hard, and getting the wins in the next few weeks are so important, right? So yeah, I mean, it's not always easy, but I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a chance to say it, so I'm glad you are back in Europe, Kobbe, and thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you.
And we're going to toss it to break, and we'll come back in a few minutes with G2 Esports versus SK Gaming. Stay tuned, guys.